What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Alex here from AlexCFE, and today we are back again with another deck profile. Obviously, over here, we're going to be talking about Neo Nectar. Now, previously I released a deck on the channel where it was kind of like the superior ride for the last format. I thought that was a fairly strong deck. I think it did okay overall, but it just had glaring weaknesses that I really feel like have been almost patched up and kind of addressed in a different way now with this current build. So I'm not saying this is like a tier 1 deck by any means, but I think this is actually going to give a lot of people a run for their money that they're not expecting. This is just me personally, what I've tested over the past couple since History Collection has kind of come out. One of the pet decks I've been kind of tooling on the back end, and I kind of like where I've arrived with this overall. So did want to bring this list to you guys. I love these like tier 2 kind of like funner quote unquote decks overall. I think that they're kind of just represent a really nice spot in the game in general, and like I said, it will surprise a lot of people once you start playing this. So a lot of different things to go over in this deck. Let's hop right into it. If you guys are interested in purchasing any of the cards that you see here today, we do have a TCG player affiliate link down in the description below. Absolutely no cost to you. You could shop to that link to help support the channel. I definitely appreciate it. Thank you guys so much in advance. And again, if you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like on the video, possibly consider subscribing to the channel. But with all that good stuff out of the way, let's hop right in. So we are going to start off, of course, I'm actually running a small Asha package over here, and by small I mean I guess it's a couple cards overall, but we are still running the Superior Stride one now. So going first, this is 100% the one that you need to be riding. You need to go into this to get into our on-hit stride with the new errata, obviously. No questions asked with that. The on-stride skill is pretty good. You don't really use a ton of CB later into the game. There are opportunities to use it if you want to, but you're not basically like pigeonholed into like needing anything. So the optional on-stride, go find a unit that you already have on board, is pretty good. Comes up once in a while, but overall pretty decent. Over here too, I am still running one of the Dream Spinning Ranunculus Asha. This did get reprinted out of the History Collection, which is pretty nice. The reason for doing this, honestly, is I'm running just one because I feel like you do need a minimal V package for this over here, just for certain matchups where, for Chaos Breaker, for example, where you're actually going to want to go into, let's say, your Flower Fairy token or whatever, just so that they can't lock you down necessarily. Like all the units on board are going to be tokens. So this I feel like is effective overall with that. You also stride on top of it. Anyway, you can also do it with this one if you wanted to. I am running something in the G zone that kind of enables you to kind of do that and then still reap the benefits overall. It's not a very powerful play, but it kind of keeps your board empty. I know like lock is a whole issue in general, so I feel like it's worth it. I've gone to this once or twice in the past couple weeks where I feel like, yeah, I'm glad I had this in my deck. But really your main kind of ride from starting off, if you're going first, it's this. Going second, I still probably would go into Innis. It's really just few and far between that you go into that one right there. Innis is also still just really good. Get some units from your deck on the top of your deck, potentially draw, get some power on this over here if it's on Rearguard Circle, which is a nice thing. And then on top of that, if it's on Vanguard Circle, obviously you guys know at this point for the defensive capabilities, we are able to, every time something's called down, you get an extra 5k. We have things that call down, spawn tokens, do various different things in order to kind of buff our Vanguard permanently during our opponent's turn. So defensively, just a very solid card overall. This is, I think, actually kind of slept on the regular trial deck Asha. The unplaced ability is pretty decent. I feel like CB1, just call 2 plant tokens. This guy gets an extra 10k. Nice columns, just getting those extra plant tokens. Easy to kind of go fetch these out, easy to recycle things. So that's why you're going to see a lot of like sporadic 2-ofs, 1-ofs, things like that, because it is easy to recycle in this deck, and that's kind of one of the themes of it. Getting to the grade 2 lineups over here, just super easy, plain simple. Sylvia calling a plant token down, a good ride target on Van, good ride just on place skill in general is just super solid, especially later in the game when your tokens start becoming super powerful. Our game plan hasn't changed. We're still pretty much going into a Katrina build, but I'm gonna, when we talk about the G zone, talk about what this deck has done and how it's kind of evolved into something a little bit more playable now and less high roll glass cannony. So yeah, just very simple. Again, multi-attack enabler, could just stack her column if you want to as well. With the Innis play, I have been playing Antero. It's annoying against like matchups that reduce your entire board, but if that is the case, it's not that great, but overall it's still pretty solid and worth including over here. So if you have a bunch of tokens left over from your Katrina turn, let's say, this guy pops down, basically you're on Innis. You have a bunch of tokens, you call this guy down, he gives your Vanguard 5k because he was called down. On top of that, all your token units gives your Vanguard 5k for every token unit. So it just makes you super defensively bulky, and just it's like a nice layer overall. I feel like I don't really need it a lot of times. I don't want to be seeing it too much, but once I do see it once in a while, I feel like it comes in clutch. So I definitely like that. And then I don't know why, but the promo just didn't go up with the rest of the grade 2s, but still running 4 of these promos over here. We want to always pretty much secure the fact that we have, if you're going first especially, like one of the new Ashas in hand, we can ditch this to go search out one of the grade 3 searchers to kind of guarantee that. Just a solid card overall, and it's honestly on when boosted skill is really good. Just CB1, call a plant token, a rear guard, that guy gets an extra 5k. Timing is a little weird because you have to, this is like on attack instead of at the end of battle, so you can't call over itself, unfortunately, but overall, still super solid. One of the main uses for Counterblast in our deck in general. And then I know I did mention it over here, the Padmini, the G version I think is better. I know we run a lot of different grade 3s in this, but just the ability to go search out that one specific Asha you need, whether that be maybe the regular grade 3, the Ranunculus, or the obviously the on stride guy. Like, I think the ability to just go and grab that from your deck is just way better. And we have a lot of grade 3s in general. Like, when I have this in hand, I'm like, oh dang, I wish I had a grade 3 to pop it down. So I feel like you do kind of need this in the deck. I think at 3 of is a sweet spot. 4 of is a little bit much. 3 of overall I think is the correct ratio. If you do want to bump it to 4, maybe cut this, but I think this is actually pretty cool. The Maiden of errata'd, I think, something like that. Basically what this is for is if you are going to go that Asha play, you can kind of protect your tokens a little bit from interruption during your opponent's turn, which is pretty cool. And then on top of that, the act ability, CB1, restless unit, 2 plant tokens to rear, and if your opponent's Vanguard's grade 3 or greater, one of our Vanguards gets an extra 10k. Again, just we hit really powerful numbers in this deck, just really helps us kind of get there a little bit further, but this is more so just to make sure that you're not interrupted during your potential Asha play. So with that Flower Fairy token. The one of the Ruth, just when you call it down, Counterblast 1, retire it, countercharge. Solid. Sometimes you will need Counterblast. I'll show you why. I know obviously we discussed this one over here, this guy right there. Like, there's a couple things that to use Counterblast, but overall this is like sometimes what you really need it for. This over here is going to be Cherry Blossom, Blizzard, Maiden Hope, Ilga. So Ilga, honestly, I think in the last format it wasn't quite as correct, but now we are dealing with a lot of control decks, a lot of things that are going to stall out games, and just in general I feel like games go on a little bit longer post history collection. This will keep us in the game for so much longer. So basically GB1, which should always be live at this point in the game, when your other unit with the same name is placed on rearguard, you may pay the cost, basically CB1, and then you return all the copies with this in its name to your hand. So we're running 3 copies of it. You call, all 3 of them down with Katrina, let's say, Counterblast 1, you just return 3 PGs to your hand. And we have, again, G guards, things like that also recycle cards, put them back into our deck. I've really gone the distance, like I think it was like 5 or 6 stride turns, honestly, because of this in certain games. Like, it's definitely worth it. And I think that, your traditional strategy, yes, go beat your opponent down, do the Neo Nectar thing, do your first stride, get your 2 markers. I'll tell you what to do with those in a second, but go into Trina afterwards. But if you know that you cannot make it through that turn, you're not going to kill your opponent, survive a little bit longer, go grab these guys, go put them in your hand, and just have that bulk out that you really need. Speaking of bulking out too, this is, again, not everybody plays this, and sometimes if you have, the Antaro, it does kind of clash with it, but if you don't have the Antaro, you know that it's not a viable play. I really do actually like this, the Maiden of Flower Carpet. Basically one place on rearguard or Vanguard circle, you get to call a token to rearguard circle, and then on the drop zone at the end of your turn, you get to retire 2 plant tokens, pop this back to your hand. So insulating your hand with the 10k shield is just really nice overall. We do have a bunch of 5ks from this. There's like a decent amount of shield in this deck, but there's not like a whole ton. That extra 10k just, I feel like, does help you out a little bit. Over here too, just another kind of basically consistency tool. This is another promo, I believe. These are like readily printed, so they're not like expensive promos anymore. But basically, one place on Vanguard rear, you get to look at the top 3, you get an Asha card to your hand. If you didn't, and then put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order, and then if you didn't, you get to call a plant token to rearguard circle, which is pretty cool. Call these down. You can replace itself with that plant token afterwards if you want. Its act skill doesn't really come up all that often, if ever, but CB1 and retire plant token, choose one of your Vanguards. So Asha gets triple drive till the end of turn. I wish it said +1 drive. I feel like that would really actually make a big difference in this, but I guess for V, it's like, that would not be too powerful, but just a little unbalanced in general. Like, it would make games super swingy overall. But I do like this as a consistency tool. It spawns your plant tokens, doesn't really cost too much to do that, so it is pretty cool. And I am running the Musketeer starter just to throw the people off potentially for the trigger lineup. A lot of crits on here, so you are swinging, very lethal every single time. Because we have a bunch of these Sentinels in our the main deck, we are then able to kind of free up some space in the trigger lineup. I'm running, how many is that? 11 crits over here. 4 heal and then 1 of the overtrigger. I'm just going with the Stoichio one. I feel like, again, it just helps you grind into the later games a little bit better. Your front row typically, on strides at least, always have other units kind of there, so they benefit off of the potential front trigger effect as well. So just personally what I like. These draw triggers, these like pseudo draw triggers now are just so good. Honestly, I feel like they change kind of the pace of a lot of this format, and I personally believe pretty much every deck needs to be running them at 4 of at this point. 4 of the on-stride ones, always good too. Yeah, 1 more Elementaria too, forgot about that in the main deck, definitely need that. It's, again, super clutch and premium is what it is. Getting into the G-Zone, here's where a lot of like the explanation of the interesting stuff kind of pops up. So obviously we are running 1 of the Messiah, just need the tickets. I'm not going to go into the price, the whole thing about it. I already made a couple rants about it, but the on-hit stride for this is actually pretty decent. So when this unit hits a Vanguard, choose one of your rear guards, search your deck for up to 1 card with the same name as that unit, call it to rear guard circle. It gets 2k until the end of turn, shuffle your deck. You can call down, let's say, like, I like, you know, if you have one of these on board, call the other one down, one place, CB1, you basically stack a whole column, again, with plant tokens, and when you're getting these force markers from this guy, I like to put them both on the same circle, and then my next ride, I go into Innis, let's say, I like to put that on, like, an opposite, and like another circle off to the side, so you have 1 on one, 2 on the other. You don't really put them on your Vanguard. Vanguard exudes enough pressure as is, like it's not really necessary. You want to just be abusing the multi-attack from your tokens. Over here then, obviously from there on out, you're really going into Katrina every single turn. I have 3 Cyclone just because I couldn't really fit the 4th with Messiah and these 2 strides over here, and I took away a lot of options in our G-Zone. The G-Zone for Neo Nectar largely is trash. There's really no situation where Katrina isn't better than pretty much every other thing that you have in the G-Zone. Like, there are some bloom ones, there's one that give you crit, blah blah blah, but like at the end of the day, this is a costless like plussing engine. It's just multi-attacks everything you want to do. It fills your board as soon as it comes down on stride, so it feels super nice. And the fact that you will be pretty much like at GB3 immediately when this is placed down, you know, 1 Cyclone pops up and 2 of these, I feel like is just, you know, your numbers are significant on your first Katrina turn almost every single time. Going second, I still almost feel like it is worth it to do this just because you are multi-attacking a lot. You're getting a lot of value out of those 2 markers. Previously, we really did the superior stride version just because we wanted to accelerate the amount of Cyclone that we have, but with these 2 markers that we now make and then 1 Cyclone face up, your token units base are now 20k, and going on to your second one, that's like, you know, 25, potentially more on the markers and whatnot. So I feel like the curve of the game, the power curve, is like completely balanced with this, and you don't need to like go all in for this, like, you know, suicidal strategy anymore. Especially going second, the ride up strategy felt absolutely terrible. So this deck is seriously super solid if you can hit that curve correctly going into your Katrinas and really catching your pace. Just, it feels super good. And then one of the Sandrines, just because, like I said, sometimes you go into the Asha, you might as well at least stride into something that can do it. It gives itself an extra 10k and a crit. Basically, if this card is face down in your G-Zone, your opponent's Vanguard's grade 3. CB1, retire 2 token units to get to stride this guy, gets an extra 10k and a crit. Again, your Flower Fairy token will still copy all the power and whatnot that it gets in the crit and whatnot, so still could be potentially decent, especially if you're trying to swing at them and like resource deny them and they're at a point where like you rush them down or whatever the case is, and like you want to swing with like lethal every single time. There's not much else that gives crit in this deck, so this is actually an okay strategy overall. But getting into our G guards now, super solid with our Innis. Basically when this guy is placed, you just you call a unit to rear guard circle from hands, you call hopefully the Antero, and then resist until the end of turn. You call the card, this guy gets 5k until the end of battle. You know, that other unit gets resist too, which is really nice. This is our ability. This is the card that puts things back in the deck, and like this is so big because it's a beefy shield, but on top of that, like you're putting a lot of the times the PGs back into deck that you need to survive, or the pieces that you need to call out to kill on your next turn. So very underlyingly versatile, which I kind of like in general. Basically, yeah, pop this down, 2 cards from your drop zone with the same name, put them back into your deck. If you put 2 cards, countercharge 1, and then this unit gets 15k until the end of turn. So, and if you chose just 1 card, you just put it on the back of your bottom of your deck. If you need to do just 1, it's fine. You don't get the other abilities, but it is what it is. Also too, against decks that do like to retire our stuff a whole lot over here, and Taro, the G guard is pretty nice. You get to Soul Blast 1, this guy is placed on Guardian Circle, you can pay the cost. If you do, it gets 5k. Then if the number of your rear guards is 1 or less, or 4 or more, it gets an additional 15, so it becomes like a 35k shield. I almost feel like I want to run, excuse me, more of this, but just this with the Innis combo, this recycling stuff for the grind games, which I feel like our format's kind of in right now, is just too good overall. This over here, Cyclone, we obviously know what Cyclone does. We just flipped up in the G zone, gives all your units without any abilities, anything like that, gives them an extra 5k, and tokens do count for that, so buffs up all your tokens. But yeah, that's pretty much the deck. In theory. I've practiced this a whole lot. I really actually like this. It's not like a tier 1 deck by any means, but I think that it's actually stepped up and elevated a lot more than it used to be. I think the majority of this is pretty cheap outside of maybe the Katrinas. I think Katrinas, and obviously, well, the Messiahs, you know, nothing we can really do there, but you know, the staple cards are always going to be expensive, but the core of it itself is pretty cheap. You change it up as you see fit too. Like, don't be glued to this. If you want to run something else besides Antero, totally go for it. If you want to change, you know, maybe the grade 3 lineup, you don't believe in the Asha package as much, totally, that's fine. I would say keep these. This 2-2 split is super solid, but you know, maybe you don't need the Ranunculus. It's completely up to you, but I'm having a lot of fun with this deck, and I think that the tier 2 kind of format is pretty solid overall. I feel like you're going to catch a lot of people off guard with this deck, and really, if you enjoy Neo Nectar, you're going to enjoy this deck. So thank you guys so much for watching. Again, if you enjoyed the content, make sure to leave a like on the video, possibly consider subscribing to the channel. Definitely appreciate it. This is Alex from Alex CFV signing out.